Hello, and welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Today we are really turning up the heat.
Literally.
Literally, yes. We are stripping away the layers of one of the most intense and claustrophobic chapters in television history.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at the Breaking Bad episode titled Grilled.
Grilled. Just the title alone gives you a sense of the pressure cooker we are about to step into.
Right.
I mean, it evokes heat, interrogation, and just this overwhelming sense of being trapped.
Exactly. It is highly visceral. And, just to set the coordinates for everyone listening so you know exactly where we are.
Right. The context is important.
Yeah, this is season 2, episode 2.
Which makes it the 9th episode of the entire series.
Yeah, only the 9th episode. So the show is, it's still relatively young.
Still finding its footing in a way.
Exactly. But this specific hour of television is where a lot of people argue the Breaking Bad universe really starts to solidify.
I would definitely agree with that. Because if you look at the narrative arc, this isn't just, a monster of the week situation.
No, not at all.
It is a bridge. It connects the initial sort of chaos of Walt's decision to cook meth.
Which, let's be honest, was almost a dark comedy in season 1.
It really was.
Yeah.
Stumbling around in the RV.
Yeah.
But this connects that to the much darker cartel-level consequences that define the rest of the series.
Yeah, the real stakes.
Exactly. This is where the genre shifts from stumbling criminals to basically survival horror.
Survival horror is the perfect way to describe it. And our mission today is to unpack that exact narrative tension.
Right.
We are going to look at how the writers trap our protagonists and introduce a villain who is going to haunt the show for seasons to come.
Oh, man, yes.
And we'll also look at how the critics received this high-stakes standoff. We have a great stack of sources here today.
We do. We are pulling primarily from the extensive breakdown of the episode, which includes the plot summaries and production credits.
And the critical reception metrics, too. We will get into all of that.
And we really should mention the creative team behind this specific material we're deep diving into.
Oh, absolutely.
The episode was written by George Masters and directed by Charles Hayde.
Charles Hayde.
Those names are so important because they crafted a very specific atmosphere here. I mean, Charles Hayde in particular has a background in gritty police procedurals like Hill Street Blues.
Right, right.
And you can really feel that grounded, dirty realism in every single frame of these desert sequences.
You really can. It's grimy. So let's set the scene for you guys. If you recall the end of the previous episode, things were bad.
They're very bad.
But here, they are catastrophic. We have our 2 protagonists, Walter White and Jesse Pinkman.
And they are in the RV.
Yep.
They aren't in the lab.
They have been kidnapped.
Right. The stakes are immediately life or death.
Yeah.
This isn't a negotiation. It is a straight-up abduction. They are trunk-bound, staring into the dark, completely disoriented.
And here is the hook for this deep dive. This is why this episode is so legendary in the lore of the show.
It's a huge turning point.
It really is. These 48 minutes feature a major exit and a major entrance.
Right. We see the end of the road for the erratic Tuco Salamanca.
And we see the very first appearance of a character who becomes an absolute icon.
Hector Salamanca.
Hector Salamanca. It is a changing of the guard in a way.
It really is. One antagonist falls, but another, perhaps even more formidable in the long run, arrives.
Yeah, it's a perfect relay race of villainy.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's unpack this. We're going to jump into our first segment here, which is the hostage situation.
Out in the desert hideout.
Right. We open in a location that is basically the middle of nowhere. It is a desert hideout, just scrub brush and sand and a rundown shack.
And the isolation is the key factor here.
Totally.
It removes all of Walt and Jesse's resources. They can't call for help.
No cell service, I'm sure.
Right, and they can't run because there is literally nowhere to run to.
Just miles of dirt.
They are completely at the mercy of Tuco Salamanca.
Mm-hmm.
And the geography really emphasizes their smallness.
Yeah, the wide shots.
Exactly. The wide shots show this massive desert and then this tiny house.
Yeah.
It makes their plight feel totally insignificant to the rest of the world, which really amps up the dread.
It's so isolating. And let's talk about Tuco's headspace right now, because mercy is definitely not a word I would associate with him.
Not at all.
Based on the plot summary we have, Tuco is just spiraling.
He is incredibly paranoid.
He's vibrating with this nervous energy.
Paranoid is putting it lightly, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He is convinced that his associate Gonzo has ratted him out to the authorities.
Right.
Tuco believes the DEA is creating this net that is closing in on him, all because of Gonzo's betrayal. He thinks everyone is
He
listening.
thinks everyone is watching him.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting and tragic in a very dark comedy sort of way.
Right.
We know, based on the previous events, that Gonzo didn't rat on anyone.
No, he didn't.
Gonzo is dead.
Precisely. It is pure dramatic irony. You know, as the audience watching this, that Tuco's paranoia is completely baseless.
Because Gonzo died in a freak accident.
Right, moving a body in a junkyard. A stack of cars fell on him.
Which is almost slapstick if it wasn't so gruesome.
It really is.
Yeah.
But Tuco doesn't know that. This misplaced fear is the entire engine driving the kidnapping.
He is acting on false information.
Which makes him even more dangerous because he is completely irrational. You cannot reason with someone whose premise for reality is factually incorrect.
You can't. So because he thinks the feds are coming, he kidnaps Walt and Jesse, and he lays out his grand plan.
A very bad plan for them.
Yeah, I have to say, as career moves go, this is a terrible offer for Walt.
It is forced labor. Pure and simple. Tuco reveals that he intends to keep them in this desert compound just until sunset. And that is the first layer of the ticking clock mechanism in the script. He is waiting for his cousins to arrive.
Yes, the famous cousins.
Or infamous, depending on how far you have followed the story.
Right. So the plan is for the cousins to transport all three of them, Tuco, Walt, and Jesse, across the border into Mexico.
And once they are there, the job description is very simple.
Oh, yeah.
They will be cooking methamphetamine for Tuco 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That is a terrifying prospect. Locked in a super lab in Mexico under the thumb of a guy who literally beats his subordinates to death for fun.
It is essentially slavery.
Yeah.
And this is what shifts the genre of the show, essentially. We go from a crime drama to a survival horror scenario.
Because Walt started this whole thing to make money for his family before he dies of cancer.
Exactly. But now the prospect is that he vanishes into a Mexican cartel dungeon and never sees his family ever again.
The money becomes totally irrelevant if you have no freedom.
Right. You can't spend it in a bunker.
Exactly. And the atmosphere creates this incredible trap. I want to highlight the analysis of the setting we have from the sources here.
Yeah, let's look at that.
It is so claustrophobic. Even though they are out in the wide open desert, the walls are closing in.
Because they are trapped in this tiny small house with a highly unstable captor.
And that ticking clock element you mentioned is crucial for the pacing.
The expert perspective here on the pacing is really interesting. If Tuco just planned to keep them there indefinitely, the tension would sag.
Right, because there's no rush.
Exactly. But because the cousins are coming at sunset, Walt and Jesse have a hard deadline.
They have to escape before the sun goes down or they are gone forever.
And every time the camera cuts to the sun dipping lower in the sky, your pulse just speeds up.
It's masterful. They can't just wait it out. They have to act.
But they aren't alone in the house with Tuco.
No, they are not. And this brings us nicely to segment 2 of our deep dive. Enter Hector Salamanca.
This is such a significant moment in the source material. Yeah. We are officially introduced to Tuco's uncle.
Hector Salamanca, played brilliantly by Mark Margolis.
Absolutely brilliantly.
Now, for anyone listening who maybe hasn't seen the image of him in this episode, let's describe him.
Sure.
He is an elderly man sitting in a wheelchair, and he looks incredibly frail.
Very frail. The source notes describe him as completely paralyzed from the neck down and mute.
He cannot speak a single word.
Not a word. His face is slack on one side. He looks, for all intents and purposes, entirely helpless.
Which, in an audiovisual medium like TV usually means a character is passive.
Right.
You see a guy in a chair like that and you just assume he's part of the scenery. But Hector is anything but passive.
No, definitely not. They give him a tool. A specific communication method that becomes absolutely iconic.
The desk bell.
The desk bell attached to the arm of his wheelchair.
Ding!
Exactly. Ding. That bell becomes his voice. One ring for yes, no ring for no.
It is primitive, but it is so effective.
And what is really amazing is how much absolute menace Mark Margolis conveys, just with his eyes and that tiny bell.
It's chilling.
He doesn't have a single line of dialogue, yet he completely dominates scenes.
And in the context of this specific episode, Grilled, he is introduced almost as a burden to Tuco.
Yeah, Tuco is taking care of him in this hideout, cooking him burritos, feeding him.
It is a strange little glimpse into Tuco's family life.
He humanizes Tuco slightly right. It shows his familial loyalty. He genuinely cares for his Tio.
He's wiping his mouth, making sure he's comfortable.
But it also perfectly sets up the obstacle.
Yeah.
Hector is always watching.
Always.
He is the silent observer in the room. He is not watching the TV. He's watching Walt and Jesse.
Now, I want to dive into the really deep part of our notes here, because looking at the source material there is a fascinating cross-reference in the notes section regarding Hector's condition.
Oh, this is great for the listeners who love the wider lore of the universe.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The source material explicitly links Hector's paralysis to the prequel series, Better Call Saul.
It really does.
So we actually find out why he is in that chair, because if you just watch Breaking Bad, you just assume it's a stroke from old age or maybe high blood pressure or something.
Yes. The notes reveal that his condition is indeed the result of a stroke, but it wasn't a natural occurrence at all.
No, it wasn't.
The stroke was intentionally caused by a character named Nacho Varga.
Nacho. That is a name that looms very large in the prequel.
Specifically, the note references the Better Call Saul episode titled Lantern. It clarifies that Nacho tampered with Hector's heart medication.
He swapped the pills, right?
Exactly. He swapped the pills for placebos, specifically ibuprofen, to induce the stroke.
That is just wild. So when we are watching Grilled and we see this invalid old man, there is this whole other layer of betrayal and history that led him to that exact moment.
Yeah.
He is trapped in his own body because one of his own subordinates betrayed him to stop his cruelty.
It connects the two series timelines so beautifully. It shows that actions in the past, Nacho's actions, created the very specific set of variables that Walt and Jesse are dealing with right now in the desert.
Wow, yeah. Because if Hector wasn't paralyzed, he could just tell Tuco what Walt and Jesse are doing.
He could just say, hey, they're plotting against you.
But because of Nacho, he can only ding the little bell.
That is a great point. His disability is basically a plot device that allows Walt and Jesse to almost get away with things. It balances the scales for our protagonists.
Almost get away with it. Almost. But as we see, that bell is more than enough to ruin everything.
More than enough.
So while Walt and Jesse are sweating it out in the desert, wondering if they're going to end up in a Mexican meth dungeon, life is actually going on back in Albuquerque.
Right.
Let's move to segment 3, the search party. This is the B-plot of the episode.
And it serves as a really necessary breather from the intense claustrophobia of the desert. But it also ratchets up the tension because we see how close rescue actually might be.
Yeah, we need that contrast.
We need the contrast between the dusty, yellow-filtered desert and the blue, sterile world of the suburbs.
So we check in on Skylar White, and she's not just sitting around waiting by the phone.
No.
This isn't the grieving widow phase at all. This is the action phase.
The summary describes her as sick with worry, but she is actively distributing handbills with Walt's photo on them.
She is mobilizing the whole neighborhood.
She is leveraging absolutely every contact she has.
And then there's Hank Schrader. Now, usually we see Hank as this boisterous DEA agent, right?
Cracking jokes, being the alpha male at the family barbecue.
Exactly. But here, the tone shifts dramatically for him.
He takes time off work specifically to look for Walt.
Which says a lot.
It establishes his deep loyalty to his family. He isn't looking for Heisenberg. He is looking for his brother-in-law.
It is so important to remember that Hank at this stage has zero suspicion of Walt's criminal life.
None.
He thinks Walt is having a breakdown or maybe a fugue state from the cancer.
Right. But the investigation takes a huge turn, and it comes from a really unlikely source.
Mark Schrader.
Yes, Marie. She operates on a theory here. She tells Hank she genuinely believes Jesse Pinkman is Walt's marijuana dealer.
Which is, I mean, it's half true.
Well, yeah.
Jesse is involved with Walt, but it is definitely not pot.
It is incorrect in the specifics because Jesse isn't selling Walt weed, but it is completely correct in the connection.
It connects Walt directly to Jesse.
And she convinces Hank to question Jesse. It is really funny how Marie, who is often portrayed as flighty or, kleptomaniacal, actually provides the crucial lead here.
This is the major breakthrough. Hank realizes he needs to find Jesse to find Walt.
Right.
But Jesse is also missing. So where does Hank go? He can't just call Jesse's cell.
He approaches Jesse's mother, Diane Pinkman, played by Tess Harper.
I love how this brings the parents into the narrative. It really grounds these criminals.
It does.
They have moms who worry about them. It reminds us that Jesse is barely an adult himself in a lot of ways.
And Mrs. Pinkman provides the absolute key piece of data for the whole episode. She gives Hank information that allows him to access the LoJack tracking system on Jesse's car.
The LoJack, that little piece of technology basically saves the entire series.
It really does.
Just for our listeners who might not know, LoJack is a stolen vehicle recovery system that emits a radio signal police can track.
Right. And it is the narrative thread that ties these two vastly different worlds together.
Exactly.
Without that LoJack signal, Hank never, ever finds the desert hideout. The worlds of law enforcement and the violent cartel are on a direct collision course, all guided by this little tracking beacon.
It is a very tactical, procedural way to solve the problem, which fits Hank's character perfectly.
Perfectly.
So Hank is on the way, following the beep. But Walt and Jesse obviously don't know that.
No, they think they're entirely on their own.
And the sun is getting lower, the shadows in the desert are getting long.
The ticking clock.
They decide they have to take matters into their own hands right now.
Which brings us to segment 4, the failed escape in the ricin.
The ricin.
This is a weapon we hear about a lot in the show. Walt has prepared it, and they decide the absolute only way out is to assassinate Tuco.
It really highlights their desperation. They aren't murderers by nature at this point in the story. Well, they are struggling with it anyway, but they view this as pure self-defense.
Kill or be killed.
Right. They plan to poison Tuco's food. It is the chemist's solution.
Yes.
It is non-confrontational. It is quiet.
The classic poison in the burrito trick.
It is simple and it's quiet. Walt slips the ricin into the food while Tuco isn't looking. He hides it in the ingredients while Tuco is distracted with his own cooking. But someone is looking.
Hector.
This is exactly where the character introduction we talked about earlier pays off instantly.
Read time.
Hector Salamanca, despite being physically paralyzed, is mentally incredibly sharp.
He misses nothing.
He sees what Walt does. He sees the sleight of hand with the poison.
And this leads to one of the most tense dinner scenes in television history. Tuco is eating. He is literally about to take a bite of the poisoned food.
The tension is unbearable.
Hector intervenes.
He knocks the plate right off the table.
He saves Tuco's life.
And Tuco, he's confused at first, right?
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
He thinks his uncle is just being difficult. He thinks, oh, Tio doesn't like the burrito. Maybe it's too spicy.
Right, but then he realizes something is very wrong. Hector is ringing the bell frantically.
Ding, ding, ding.
He's staring right at Walt. He is pointing with his eyes. And Tuco, for all his crazy, erratic behavior, has incredible survival instincts.
He is an apex predator.
He really is. He realizes he is being played.
And the switch just flips. The whole host demeanor is gone. The let's have dinner before the cousins get here vibe completely vanishes.
He takes Walt and Jesse outside immediately, and the violence escalates to a 10.
He holds a gun directly to Jesse's head. This is the brutal interrogation.
He forces Walt to confess to the poisoning plot. What did you do? What did you put in it?
It is a total catastrophic failure of their plan.
Complete failure.
They tried to be smart to use chemistry, the ricin, to solve the physical problem, but brute force Tuco with a gun wins in that specific moment.
It creates a situation where intelligence just fails. Walt's giant brain couldn't save them.
It made it worse.
In fact, his attempt to be clever just made things infinitely worse.
Yes.
Now Tuco knows for a fact they are trying to kill him.
They are on their knees in the dirt, waiting to be executed or dragged to Mexico.
The intellectual superiority Walt feels he always has over Tuco completely evaporates when there's an assault rifle shoved in his face.
And that brings us right to the climax of the episode, segment 5, the shootout.
The turn of events here is intensely physical.
Yeah.
It is primal. It stops being a quiet chess match and starts being a desperate street brawl.
Tuco is distracted for a second. He is raging. He is looking at the horizon, maybe checking to see if the cousins are finally arriving.
And Jesse Pinkman finds something deep inside himself.
He spots a rock, just a jagged rock sitting in the dirt.
And he uses it. Jesse actually manages to overpower Tuco by hitting him in the side of the head with the rock.
And it is not just the rock. In the desperate scramble, Jesse gets a hold of his own pistol, the one Tuco confiscated from him earlier, and he shoots Tuco right in the abdomen.
It is a messy, chaotic fight. It is not a beautifully choreographed martial arts scene like you would see in an action movie.
No, it's ugly.
It is two desperate people fighting for their actual lives in the dirt. They're rolling around, biting, scratching. It feels terrifyingly real.
So Tuco is down. He is shot in the gut. He falls backward into the excavation pit next to the house.
He is bleeding badly.
Walt and Jesse think, okay, we won. Let's get out of here. But then they see a car.
A vehicle approaches in the distance. We see the dust trail kicking up. And because of the setup earlier, that ticking clock we talked about, they assume the absolute worst.
They think it is the cousins.
Exactly. They think we took out the boss, but the reinforcements are here.
Their victory turns into immediate, absolute panic.
So they crawl into hiding in the brush. They leave the car. They leave the gun. They just hide in the dirt.
But it is not the cousins at all. It is the B plot colliding beautifully with the A plot.
It is Hank Schrader.
Hank Schrader following the LoJack signal.
He steps out of his SUV, probably expecting to find a stolen vehicle or maybe Jesse Pinkman getting high with some friends.
Yeah, he thinks it's a routine grab.
He is completely unprepared for what he was walking into.
Instead, he finds a literal war zone.
He confronts Tuco. Now, Tuco is injured. He's bleeding out. He is climbing out of that pit. But he is still incredibly dangerous.
He sees Hank.
And Tuco doesn't know who Hank is, really. He just sees a cop. Or maybe just an enemy standing in his way.
He just starts shooting. Tuco opens fire on Hank with an assault rifle.
And this is a hugely defining moment for Hank. Up until now, we have seen him posturing, talking big, maybe being a bit of a loudmouth.
A desk jockey who talks tough.
But here, he is in a real shootout. He is under heavy fire.
And he handles it.
He really does. He takes cover behind his SUV. He doesn't panic at all. He returns fire.
It is a very quick, very brutal exchange.
Hank creates a distraction, pops up, and fatally shoots Tuco.
A clean headshot. Tuco Salamanca is dead.
And the resolution of this is ruled as self-defense back at the station. Hank didn't go out there to execute him. He was fired upon first.
Right. He was literally just checking a LoJack signal for his missing brother-in-law.
But think about the position of Walt and Jesse in this exact moment.
Oh, man.
This is the irony that makes the show so incredibly good. They are hiding in the bushes maybe 20 yards away,
Watching this whole thing unfold.
watching Walt's DEA brother-in-law kill their cartel kidnapper.
It is the ultimate close call. If Hank had just looked to the left, or if Walt had sneezed, or if Jesse had panicked and run it, the entire series would end right there in episode 9.
Walt would be arrested on the spot.
Instead, Hank is occupied. He is checking the body. He is calling it in on the radio. He is dealing with the massive adrenaline dump of a lethal shootout.
He begins investigating the scene.
And Walt and Jesse, they silently escape.
They slip away into the desert. They survive. But the dynamic of the show has shifted permanently.
Hank is now a hero who took down a cartel boss.
He actually gets a promotion later because of this very shootout.
And Walt and Jesse are traumatized fugitives who barely made it out with their lives.
And we have to note a major cast departure here.
Yes. This episode marks the final appearance of Raymond Cruz as Tuco Salamanca in the present Breaking Bad timeline.
He was such a force of nature. It is hard to believe he was only in a handful of episodes.
It feels like he dominated 2 entire seasons.
He burned bright and fast. And here's a fun fact from the production notes. Raymond Cruz actually asked to be killed off.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the role of Tuco was so high energy and so physically demanding, all that screaming and constant tension, that he said it was physically exhausting him.
Wow.
He felt he couldn't keep that level of intensity up for a long multi-season arc.
That makes total sense when you think about it. You watch him and his veins are popping out of his neck in literally every scene.
But his exit paved the way for very different kinds of villains later on in the show. Villains who are much quieter, much more calculated.
Tuco was the fire. Later villains are the ice.
Exactly.
So the dust settles. Tuco is dead. Walt and Jesse are free, technically. Let's talk about how the world reacted to this episode. Segment 6, Critical Reception and Legacy.
It is really interesting to look back at the reviews from 2009 versus the retrospective rankings from years later.
Because watching it week to week hits differently than when you binge it all at once.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the rankings first. The Ringer ranked Grilled as the 25th best episode out of the 62 total episodes.
That puts it firmly in the top half. It is a very solid ranking, considering how many absolute masterpiece episodes are in the later seasons.
Like Ozymandias or Face Off.
Exactly. Competing with those is tough.
And Vulture ranked it 30th overall, so solidly in the middle to high tier.
Which is deeply respectable given the incredible quality of the show overall. It acknowledges that this is a truly foundational episode.
But at the time it aired, there was some specific criticism. We have a review here from Seth Amiton of IGN.
Yes. He gave the episode an 8.9 out of 10.
Which is a very high score still.
It is. But the critique inside the review is fascinating. It brings up a great debate about storytelling structure.
What was his main issue with it?
He felt the episode prolonged Walt and Jesse's entrance into the drug trade.
Prolonged it.
Yeah, the argument was that the kidnapping was basically a detour, that it delayed the business of cooking and selling meth.
Huh.
The reviewer seemed to want to see the empire-building aspect and viewed being trapped in a shack as a stall tactic by the writers.
That is such an interesting take because looking back now, the business seems completely secondary to the survival aspect.
I think that is the modern consensus for sure. The kidnapping isn't a delay. It is vital character development.
It shows us that they are absolutely not ready for the drug trade.
It exposes their extreme vulnerability.
Right. If they just started selling meth smoothly and making millions, there's no drama. The fact that they get kidnapped by their very first distributor shows how deeply over their heads they are.
It is a massive reality check for them.
It really is.
Exactly. The delay is the entire point. Yeah. It strips away the illusion that Walt is some kind of criminal mastermind.
In this episode, he is literally just a terrified chemistry teacher hiding in the bushes.
It establishes that the criminal world is chaotic and doesn't follow a neat business plan. If the show had just skipped this trauma and gone straight to them making millions, it wouldn't have earned the later darker moments.
It also establishes the physical danger early on. It is not just about getting caught by the cops. It is about getting murdered by your own partners.
Precisely. It raises the stakes from prison to death.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Let's wrap this deep dive up with our outro and summarize what we've learned from the sources.
If we summarize the key takeaways, Grilled is pivotal for three main reasons.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, the introduction of Hector Salamanca and his bell. That specific sound effect becomes a signature of the show's tension. It is an absolute masterclass in sound design.
Second, the death of Tuco Salamanca. But specifically the fact that he died at the hands of Hank. Not Walt, not Jesse.
Which sets Hank on his own trajectory as a super cop. It gives him confidence, but it also deeply haunts him moving forward.
And it keeps the two main characters, Walt and Hank, on parallel lines that are destined to eventually intersect.
And third, the narrow escape. The secret identity is safe for another day.
But the psychological toll is immense.
It changes them fundamentally. They aren't just partners in crime anymore. They are survivors of a severe shared trauma.
They have seen the devil together.
That bonds them in a way that goes so much deeper than just making money.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. Building on that IGN review about prolonging the story, think about the sound of that bell.
Ding.
It is just a cheap piece of hotel reception equipment. You see them at front desks literally everywhere. But in this episode, the writers turned it into a deadly weapon.
They turned a paralyzed mute man into the biggest threat in the room.
And they show that in this world, danger doesn't always look like a screaming guy with a gun. Sometimes it looks like a frail old man in a wheelchair watching you secretly poison his nephew.
So the real question is, in a show about transformation, are these detours, these moments where the business stops and raw survival begins, are they frustrations?
Or are they the exact moments where the characters actually become who they are meant to be?
I would argue they are the essential fire that forges them. Hence the title, Grilled. You don't get cooked without the heat.
Absolutely beautifully said. If you want to dig deeper, check out the source notes on the Better Call Saul connections we discussed. It adds a whole new layer to Hector's hate-filled stare when you rewatch it.
There is always more to find in the details. Watching the prequel really changes how you view Hector's immense frustration in this episode. He knows exactly what is happening, but he is powerless to stop it himself.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
Until then.